Welcome again to the Reading for Pleasure Book Club. My name is Katie. I'm a librarian with Windsor Public Library at the Budimir branch.
I am Laura. I am currently working out of the Fontainebleau Library.
I'm Natalie, and I'm working out of the Forest Glade Library.
Wonderful. This month we are talking all about second chance romance. So this is a romance where the two characters previously had some sort of relationship, be it a friendship, a romantic relationship, or a flash in the pan one night stand. And then something happens years later, they meet back up, and it's a ... for what's going to happen next. So, Laura, would you like to go first and tell us about what book you read this month for your second chance romance?
Sure. Let me just get my notes up. So, this month I read a book called The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary. It follows the narrative between Dylan and Addie, who fall in love in France. Dylan rents a villa from a friend, and Addie, who shares the same mutual friend, is the caretaker for that villa. Their chemistry is undeniably steamy. It's witty and it's instantaneous. And they begin a long-distance relationship where Addie returns home to the UK, and Dylan, he kind of travels around with his best friend Marcus before he settles down in her hometown. Like all second chance romances, drama ensues. Together, Dylan and Addie grow apart in certain ways until one evening of misunderstandings and hurt feelings. And it's interesting to me because I think that oftentimes with this trope, we often see that the romantic dynamic where one character is like really, really sure of themselves, they know their life's path, while another one is deeply searching for a higher purpose without knowing exactly what that higher purpose is. So Dylan and Addie end up ending their relationship, and they have no intention of ever seeing each other again until one day that they are both invited to that mutual friend's wedding, and they fatefully collide on a long drive up to Scotland. Quite literally, they crash their cars and they decide to carpool the remainder of the way. So needless to say, it's one bumpy ride of calamity, mischief, and returning to old arguments, confronting old feelings, and they end up questioning their choices. There's some really funny twists along the way, and it really moves the plot along. I found that it was a charming read. I kept turning the pages and thinking this is exactly like you'd see in a romantic comedy. It gave off that vibe. And it's reminiscent of like other second chance romances, like 10 Things I Hate About You. And something that I really liked about this book, so I finished it, and then at the very, very end, there's discussion questions, which I thought it'd be really great for a book club. So like if this was ever used for a book club, the questions in the back, they're stimulating for conversation. I looked up some of her other, this is the third book that she's written. I'm quite impressed with her writing. So I think I would give the other two a chance, but yeah, that's my book.
I've not read it, but I know that The Flat Share is one of her other ones, and that looks really interesting to me. That one is one about two people. So in London, real estate is incredibly expensive. And so these two people work opposite shifts. One works in the daytime, one works at the nighttime. So they share not only an apartment, they actually share a bed, but they share opposite. So when they never actually meet at the beginning of the book, they just live together because their paths are always just missing each other in the same apartment. And I thought that was a really cool concept. And then her other book, I forget what it's called off the top of my head.
The Switch.
The Switch, okay. And it's about a lady who kind of switches places with her grandmother. And it sounds, I don't know how I feel about that one. I feel like that one's a little less of the rom-com that I love to read for these ones. That one sounds a little bit more.
Yeah, but all three of these books, they're kind of quirky. Like there's something just a little bit, they're very different concepts, I find.
Mm-hmm. So, and then her next one, just as a little tidbit that's coming out next year is called The No Show. There's no cover and no synopsis yet. I just know the title, and it sounds interesting with The No Show. I'm like, ooh, are we someone getting left at the altar? Someone getting, I don't know. I'm just putting things out there.
Laura, what did you say the author's name was again?
Beth O'Leary.
Laura, could you give us an example of one of the questions at the back that you thought were really good?
Let me turn to. Well, I thought it was quite on the nose. The road trip is a second chance romance. What is your favorite romantic trope? Enemies to lovers? Perhaps a fake relationship? I thought this is so perfect for what we're doing. Some of them, I actually don't want to read some of them just because it gives spoilers. I made the mistake of flipping to the back and I read one. I went, oh no, I spoiled one thing for myself. So I won't read the rest of them, but there are, I think, like 15 questions.
Natalie, what book did you read this month?
I read, it's called Talk Bookish to Me. Have you read this yet, Katie?
I have it on my list. I think I've taken it out at the library about 3 or 4 times and I never get to it. And there's always people waiting for it. So I always have to return it. And then I just put it right back on hold.
I do think I want to read The Road Trip. And I think this book is sort of similar in essence because it really made me feel like it was a rom-com versus and more of a chick lit book more than a romance novel. But I liked it because it was funny. So let me give you the premise first before I get into it. So it is it's called Talk Bookish to Me. It's by Kate Bromley. Their main characters are Cara Sullivan, and she is actually a romantic book writer. So I think she's 30 years old and she's written like 7 books in her career, which is fairly prolific for somebody who's 30. So I thought that was interesting. And I also liked it because she actually put excerpts of her historical romance books in the book because she's a historical romance book writer. And that was kind of neat too. I kind of like the quirks of that. So again, it is a second chance romance. And so originally Cara Sullivan dated this gentleman called Ryan Thompson. They dated in university. He was her first like full-on boyfriend. I think they dated for 3 years or 2 years. She also lost her virginity to him. This is like a big deal, this boyfriend. They date for a few years, some misunderstandings, some tragic circumstances occur, and they break up. And they lead a life for about 10 years. And Ryan, re-enters her life when her friend Christine is getting married because Ryan ends up being one of the good friends of the groom. So again, a wedding. Because I was thinking when you said that as well, Laura, that there was a wedding. And I was like, weddings, they bring people together who would never meet each other. Anyway, so it was really cute though, because Ryan and Cara, they have some almost enemies to lovers moments, because they certainly don't like each other at first. Ryan has an awesome dog. I like a dog character named Duke, which kind of helped the whole premise as well. There's a good cast of characters. I liked the friendships. I liked the way they showed female friendship in particular. That was quite nice, actually. It was kind of like an added bonus in the book. But yeah, so it was kind of a slow burn at first. It wasn't super crazy steamy. I did like the way they ended the book as well. So like I said, she gets reintroduced to Ryan at her friend who is getting married. And what happens here is, since Ryan does have a dog named Duke, he ends up getting kicked out of the hotel because his dog makes a mess. And of course, I don't know why this would happen, but in a book it could happen. She allows Ryan to stay with her in her lovely apartment that does not have 2 rooms. He sleeps on the couch for the week before the wedding. And that is how their relationship may or may not develop again. But then there is another misunderstanding and miscommunication, and they are at odds with each other. And I don't want to go further than that because then I'll start telling you the whole plot of the book. But it did end well, of course. And the characters were they were very well developed. I did like this book quite a bit.
I have 2 books this month. One because it is a second chance romance, but it's more the format that I thought was really, really interesting. And then the other one is, surprise, surprise, a sports romance. Shocking, I know. So I'll do that one first. It is by Helena Hunting, who I have talked about before. This book is part of what she calls her illustrated covers line of books. So she has written, you know, some sports romances with the semi-naked men on the covers, or she has like another one that she calls like the tight white t-shirt crew, and all the covers have men wearing tight white t-shirts. She has 3 books with the quintessential rom-com illustrated cover. This one called Meet Cute, and one called Kiss My Cupcake. So I read The Good Luck Charm, and it is the story of Lila and Ethan, who were high school sweethearts, and Lila wanted to be a doctor, and Ethan was a big up-and-coming hockey player. So he gets drafted in high school, and but they're in love, and so they're not going to, he is going to turn down some opportunities because he wants to be with her, and he's like, nope, she needs to finish school, and then I can wait to be drafted. And there's some discussions that happen amongst people involved in both of their lives, and Lila ends up breaking up with him because she thinks that she's going to hold him back, and that he is not going to be able to fulfill his potential as a hockey player if they are together. Years later, he ends up back in their hometown of Wisconsin, somewhere, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And because his father has had a stroke, yep. And so he takes a trade back to a team close to his family. And it just so happens that Lila is the nurse who's helping his father. It turns out she never went to medical school, and she has always remained close with his family because they all live in the same small town. And Ethan comes back, and he realizes that he has been playing very not well. He's been traded a lot, and that when he played the best hockey is when they were together. So he decides he is going to get Lila back because she is his good luck charm, tying it into the title there. And it's a really, really cute story. It was actually a book that I read before I realized I liked Helena Hunting so much. I picked up Meet Cute in 2019 because it had an illustrated cover, and I had read a few books with those like illustrated cover romance books when I was first dabbling in the romance genre. And I went, this is cute. I wonder if she has any other books. And then I found The Good Luck Charm, and I read that one, and I went, this is cute. And then I kind of didn't think about it. And then in early 2020, I went to a library conference, and Helena Hunting was actually there, and at the big super conference expo thing. And I got the first and second book in her all-in series, because the third one was coming out, so they were just giving away signed copies of the books. And I was like, I'll take a free book. I don't even care if I don't necessarily am going to read it. I will definitely take a free book because I've read books by her before. And then I just spiraled into a romance spiral. And now here we are. So it's a really, really cute book. There's definitely that angst that is kind of stereotypical of a second chance romance. I think that's something, they're always hit and miss for me, because I generally don't like the drama or the angst. I want the funny and the sweet and the heartfelt. But with a second chance romance, there is always a reason why they are no longer together. And usually that reason is it's not a happy reason, because if it was happy, they would still be together. So it was definitely a little bit outside of my normal comfort zone, but I still enjoyed it. The second book I read, if you were a youth of a certain age, you probably read some books by the one and the only Meg Cabot. So she has a teen series, she has a middle grade series, and she has adult series. She started off as a historical romance writer using the pseudonym Patricia Cabot. And then she went into some YA. She is the author of the well-beloved series, The Princess Diaries, and she is one of my favorite authors. I have loved her since I was a preteen. I think she's great. So she has written a series called the Boy series, and this is the fourth one. It's called The Boy is Back. They always have some sort of title with the word boy in it. The Boy Next Door, The Boy is Back, something like that. And this whole series is told through communication methods. So I borrowed it on Cloud Library to show you. I have a physical copy at home, so that's what I had read. But so if you look here, it is told through, in this case, it's like an instant message chat. And then at another point, you've got, scroll through, like this is it's a newspaper article. And then you've got more IMs in the past. Oh, here's one. It's an email between two of the characters. So it's all told through things like that. And if you're not ready for it, it will definitely throw you off. The first time I read one of these books, I was like, I don't get it, and I don't like it, and I don't understand what's going on. But with this one, I knew what I was getting into. So I knew, and I had read the other books in the series, so I kind of knew what to expect and how to follow the story. But it's definitely not a book that you can, it's not told in a normal way. It's kind of like a few years ago, there was a Netflix movie, and it's also a book, The Guernsey Literary Potato Peel Pie Society.
Yes.
That book is told through letters, but it's kind of that same idea where it's not a first person narrative. It's not a third person narrative. It's not a omnipotent narrative. It's all told through almost like found communication, because you do have newspaper articles. There's in some other ones, it took place in like a workplace. So there was emails between all these different people who worked together, and you kind of have to pay attention to who the email's from, so you know like who it's from and who it's to. So it's definitely the type of book where you kind of have to wrap your head around how to read it. You can't just really pick it up and go with it. Like I said, I've read them before by her, so I knew how to get to it, but I could definitely see if it was not what you expected, that you opening it and just being like, nope, I'm done. This is just not something that I'm going to enjoy. So it is a second chance romance. And you can't really get into a whole lot with it because of with the formatting, but there is a female character named Becky Flowers, and they live in the small town of Bloomfield, something, Indiana. And her ex man friend, let's go with that, because there were some complications even when they were together before, is a pro golfer, and he has not been home for many, many, many years. And that has to do with why him and Becky are no longer together. And there is some family drama. So he is forced to come home, and he is forced to bring up the past, and the whole town kind of bands together and decides that they are going to figure out what happened and get the town dream couple back together. So there's a lot of like meddling other people. You don't just get the point of view of Becky and Ethan. You actually get other people's emails and communications that are kind of in their lives around them that also are meddling in the situation. I did rate it on Goodreads out of 5.
Okay.
And I gave it apparently I gave it a 5 when I've read it.
Oh.
I will say I will admit, I did not read the whole thing for this book club. I last read it in 2016 when
So
it
you
was.
had to compare The Good Luck Charm and The Boy Is Back. Are they both 5 stars for Goodreads?
No, but I think I wasn't a romance reader when I read that. I was a Meg Cabot reader.
Okay.
So I think if I were to go back and read it again, I think that my rating was based more on nostalgia and enjoyment of the author and knowing like how she writes in her type of her voice, and you can really hear it in all of her books. You can always tell what a Meg Cabot book is. She has a very distinct voice no matter what genre, or if it's like it's got some magic elements, or if it's got some like kind of thriller elements to it. You can always tell what a Meg Cabot book is. I also read The Good Luck Charm before I was really into Helena Hunting, and the first time, and I gave it a 3 on Goodreads. But then I went back and I read it again because this one slightly ties into the other hockey series I really like. So the team that Ethan trades from that was team in Wisconsin is the unnamed Chicago team that all of the hockey players in that other series are on. So he's a side character in one of those books as like this guy who's being traded and leaving. So knowing that and kind of knowing how she writes her other things, I upped it to a 4-star. So I don't think either rating is actually accurate. But I don't care because I love both of the authors, and I will fully admit that my ratings are influenced by the author themselves rather than necessarily the story.
Do you find, so just from all of our descriptions, it seems like with the second chance romance, the potential for the romance to be reignited again it hinges on some sort of external force. Like, I'm using the word magical very lightly, but for Natalie and I, it was a wedding that brought them back together. In The Good Luck Charm, it was
Dad stroke.
Yes.
Medical emergency.
Yeah. And then in the last one, The Boy Is Back, it's a meddling community.
Well, I agree with you. And I think what it is with a second chance romance, things end badly. And you don't, like, when you break up with someone, you don't necessarily want to see your ex again. It ended for a reason. And even though in, I think all of these, the reasons were not necessarily, I don't love you anymore, we're fighting all the time, things like that. There was always some sort of kind of like external factor that led to a breakup, like, you know, a dramatic town controversy, or some like letting them go because that whole like, if you love them, set them free thing, and you love them so much you want them to succeed, and they can't do that with you. But there is bad blood between the couple that has broken up. So unless you are forced by some external factor to re-meet up and realize that maybe there was a miscommunication, or situations have changed, or things were not exactly as they seemed when the relationship ended in the first place, why would you communicate with them again? Like, I'm not going to go, hey, that maybe things weren't as bad as I thought they were, I should contact so and so. No, you're not going to do that, right? But in an external factor bringing you together, and you're kind of forced to hash out the things that happened, and maybe you will realize that things were not always as they seemed, or the reasoning behind a relationship ending was not what you thought it was, right? I don't know, maybe that's why you need an external factor in a second chance romance.
When you were describing, this is tangential, but when you were describing the community meddling from your Meg Cabot book, it was reminding me of another second chance romance, which I also love, and I will throw out there, by Penny Reed. There are two books to a storyline. Penny Reed is the one that wrote the Winston Brothers series. We've talked about her and the brothers probably every single episode at this point.
Because they're so good. How can you not?
The first book to the series, to the Second Chance Romance, ends not in a typical way a romantic book would. And that one I think was that one called Beard with Me, Katie?
Yes, I think it was.
Okay, Beard with Me follows the story of Scarlett or Claire McClure. I'm not going to get into the details just because it's been a while since I've read it, unless Katie, you want to jump in. She falls in love with one of the Winston brothers, Billy, my favorite Winston brother. And but they are teenagers. They're teenagers, so it's not anything that's super serious or anything. He takes care of her. Anyway, do you want to describe this book at all?
Well, so with Beard in Mind, it's almost like, you know how in all of our books you had those like flashback moments. I mean, I'm assuming because I didn't read them, but you learn about the original relationship that ended, be it through a flashback or through a discussion or something like that. You learn about what happened from one or both perspectives to end the relationship in the first place. Beard in Mind is all of, or
yeah, Beard with Me.
Sorry, yeah. Beard in Mind is the second path. Takes place when, like you said, when they're in high school, and the entire book is dedicated to that original romance, that high school first love romance, and then it ends when the relationship ends.
Yes,
there's some drama and some things, and again, it's that sort of situation where there's communication, there's external factors that lead to the breakup, there's people and things beyond the control of the two characters, or some things that were in the control of the one character, but like,
so this story actually ends, and there's no positivity, like
it is a bleak ending.
Which I loved, because I knew there was going to be more. Then the second book to that storyline is Beard Necessities.
Okay.
And this is why it reminded me of Meg Cabot, is because the entire Winston brother clan gears together to try to bring Billy and Claire / Scarlett back together again. And it's just
because they're so tired of the two of them just like constantly circling around each other and just being up in their own feelings and their own emotions, and like being all woe is me, and basically the whole family gets together and goes, stop it, get over yourselves, you guys love each other, just get together.
Yeah. And so that's the book that ends the series that we've been talking about all of these episodes.
And we've really only touched the surface of the Winston brothers in this little Reading for Pleasure book club. There's a whole other series about a group of a knitting circle of ladies in Chicago, which we haven't even got into yet. So, oh boy.
You know what? I'm sure at some point you guys are going to be doing the mystery. You know how next month is Paranormal Romance? I'm sure there's going to be a mystery and romance, right?
Yeah, like a romantic suspense.
Yeah. So Natalie, if you are interested in reading a Penny Reed series, there's a spin-off from the Winston brothers just around Cletus, and they're called, I want to say, like Marriage and Murder or something like that.
Engagements and Espionage, Marriage and Murder.
I might have to look into that.
They're cute. They're really cute. And then once you get done with all the Penny Reed books, she has actually licensed her universe that she has created to other authors. And there's a whole world called the Smarty Pants Romance universe, where other authors write stories based in the Winston world.
I think I read one of the Smarty Pants and Romances last month. Because I was liking that. Like I was liking the whole idea behind the Smarty Pants Romance. They were appealing to me.
So let's we got distracted. Let's talk peppers. Let's talk spiciness. So Laura, tell me about your peppers.
Okay, so peppers and stars are not the same.
Peppers and stars are not the same.
So it's actually a one. I wouldn't say it's a closed door romance, not exactly, but it's understandably steamy, not that it made me blush in any way as I was reading it. So I would say it's a one cayenne pepper.
Okay. We're not talking like, because then now that you're going into pepper specifics, you could be like, it's one cayenne pepper, or it's like, it's one ghost pepper. Like we gotta.
Oh, it's definitely not a ghost pepper.
Natalie, how about you? What are your peppers talking about?
Funny enough, mine was also a one. Like I was kind of like, that's why I said I almost feel like this book was more chick lit than romance. Like it was just I really enjoyed like the story, and then it had like, you know, the moments of intimacy, but it wasn't like, that wasn't the be all end all in the book, and that wasn't like the underlying desire throughout the whole book, which in last month's book, the trashy historical romance I read, that was like the underlying desire at all times throughout the book, which I didn't enjoy. So yeah.
I've noticed that there seems to be less chick lit now than there was maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. And I sort of wonder if it has to do with romance novels becoming more mainstream through the illustrated cover thing and the promotion of rom-com versus like romance novel. Because I feel like a rom-com and chick lit are two sides of the same coin. And that coin is spiciness, and one is just slightly more than the other. Because I find, generally speaking, a chick lit and a rom-com have the same sort of like, they've got a very well-rounded plot. They've got something going on beyond the romance. Like there's something going on beyond the romantic story. If you look at like,
okay, so if you look at Sophie Kinsella, or if you look at Jennifer Weiner, or even Emily Giffin, these are all early chick lit writers, but they're all considered chick lit. Yet there's romance is a major like portion of their book, but it's not graphic. And then I wonder if the romance aspect, to get tagged with that little romance tag, has to have a graphic intimacy scene.
I don't think so. I think what it is, because the closed door romances are still considered romances.
Okay.
I think what it is it all depends on the plot. In a romance novel or a rom-com, even though it might have another plot element, the primary plot driver is the romance. Whereas you look at something like the Shopaholic series, or look at the Undomestic Goddess, which is a Sophie Kinsella book. There's a romance in it, like her and that the male and female characters, but the kind of overarching plot of that is that it's this high-powered lady who has ended up in the country of England and is pretending to be a housekeeper, and she has no domestic skills whatsoever. So whereas you look at something like using a closed door romance would be like Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall, it's a fake dating and it's a closed door romance, but the primary plot driver is the relationship between the two characters. And I could be wrong, but to me that's more what the difference is. And that's why I say they're two sides of the same coin, because I feel like you can have a rom-com and a chick lit with varying levels of spice. There's been some chick lit that is very much like a ... fade to black. There's some romance novels that do that. there's also some where you're reading along and then all of a sudden you go, whoa. And, or I follow an Instagram account called, I forget which, I follow a few romance novel themed Instagram accounts, and there was a funny, they posted something about how when you're reading a spicy scene and you have to pause and go, I don't think you can move that way. and so I think it's but you can have moments like that in a chick lit book too. So I think it just kind of depends on the plot. Again, that's just my opinion. I could be completely wrong. I have not done any Googling on it, but that's kind of how I see it. Because again, we're looking at Shopaholic, if we're talking Sophie Kinsella. Yeah, there's a romance to it, but the main plot is the fact that she's a hot mess of a human and can't budget her money. Right? I don't know.
Katie, you've read a number of paranormal romances.
Yeah, I mean, I don't tend to go for I've read a lot of fantasy novels. Like I'm a big fan of fantasy. Paranormal romance could take place in this world or some semblance of this world. It could take place in a high fantasy type situation. Maybe I'll talk about everyone's favorite fairy fun, A Court of Thorn and Roses. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll read a book with a witch. Maybe I'll read a book with a vampire. I don't know. We'll see.
So that's what I was going to ask is, are there any paranormal romances that you've read with a character, with like a specific kind of character that you can't stand? So can you enjoy werewolves, but you do not enjoy vampires? Or
I think I'm very leery on vampires.
Same. Because
in a certain time following the Twi-mania time of the world, they just were throwing vampires everywhere. They'd be like, oh, this is a book about ninjas? Wrong. Vampire ninjas.
Yeah.
Just don't just throw a vampire in to make it to throw a vampire in. Like, make it a good book. You don't have to have a vampire in anything. So I'm very leery on those.
Would you rather read about a werewolf?
I mean, maybe.
Did you read any of the Cassandra Clare books?
Yes. And I was just gonna say, like, when I was reading the True Blood books,
Mm-hmm.
I was team shapeshifter over team vampire, because I was just like, they're way cooler.
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
know. I think a shapeshifter is a lot more fun. Like, you're a normal person sometimes and a cool animal sometimes. I don't know.
Have you read any of Kelly Armstrong's series, like Women of the Other World or the Canesville series?
No, because when they were all coming out is when I was very like, why are there more vampires?
I think only one because there's 13 books in Women of the Other World, that series, and they're all on different characters. Some of them have like 2 books at a time, but there's only one about a vampire in that entire series.
I think I heard about a vampire, so I was just off of it completely.
Oh.
I was like, I'm not risking any more vampires. I've been hurt before.
Did you ever read the Anne Rice novels that were before Twilight?
No, but I did go to her house in New Orleans.
Those were good books.
I feel like there's in the post-Twilight era, there's people who are like, it's either you still love vampires or you are completely against vampires altogether. You split after that last book and there's no going back.
Oh.
I was just saying, I still feel guilty that the completionist in me had to buy Midnight Sun. My friends, it has been a delight. I don't mean to cut us off, but it is 6:59 and I must go back to the desk. Laura, it has been so fun. This is our last video with Laura, because next month at this time, she will have a little bean. arms. So we will no longer be having a Laura for a year, which is very sad, but we're very happy for you.
Thank
Mhm.
you. Thank you.
So
This
we
has
will
been
have
a lot of fun. And
fun.
yeah,
Thank you for indulging me in my love of romance novels. It has been wonderful.
thank
We're
you
gonna have
for
to find special guests.
oh yes, yes. Going forward, there will be special guests.
So it's been a slice. I'm sure maybe at some point you can be a special guest.
I would love that. I would love that. Thank you. I honestly, I was not into romance before I started this book club. So I'll just say that I've learned a lot.
So glad. And as we said, next month is Paranormal Romance. It will be the second last week of October
Mhm.
because we can no longer go on Mondays. And the last Wednesday of October, we have a different program going on. I don't know what day that is, but it will be up somewhere for all of you to see. Thank you so much. And my friends, I will see you next month.